talking too loud. We get heady and healthy.
Oh, okay. New slogan.
New slogan.
Nice. Yeah. And we give everyone like a gift certificate to Future. And, you know, that's what we do here. Hello and welcome to Talking Too Loud with Chris Savage. I'm your host, Chris Savage. I am joined, as always, by the extraordinary, the thoughtful, the producer who comes up with everything that I'm supposed to say word for word. If I ever make a mistake, it's on her. Sylvie Lubau.
Way to throw me right under the bus. I love it.
Oh, Sylvie. We have fun. We have fun, don't we?
We do.
So we have a great guest today, Michael Karnjanaprakorn, who is a founder, who has really turned into a creator. And he started both Skillshare and Otis, which is like an alternative investing platform. And I've known him for a long time, and it was really fun to have him on the show and really get into some really thoughtful, heady things about like, why do we work and what happens when you sell a company and what happens when you have a bunch of money. And, you know, it was a cool interview. So I'm excited for people to hear it. Yeah.
Super honest. I'm pumped. It was, yeah.
You were really liking this one. I could tell.
It was, yes. I mean, we will let the interview speak.
We'll let the interview speak. You're right. Oh, let's not, you know what? This is
no
not talking too loud.
Spoilers.
Let's not sell the interview. That's not what we're here to do.
No.
We're here to talk about what's going on in our lives. That's why people tune in.
Yeah. They want to know about all the shenanigans with camping and hotels that we hate. And, you know.
Well, it's funny you say camping. I think I have to follow up on a few episodes ago. I was talking about canoe camping.
Yeah.
And
I've been asked, what you needed to bring.
Yes. I've been asked by quite a few people, did you survive that? I'm here to tell you, yes, I did. And I'm also here to tell you it was so much more fun than I was expecting.
That's amazing.
It was such a delight. And I was nervous. Like, what kind of gear do I need? Yes, I ordered extra lights, headlamps, and, special socks, whatever.
Classic.
But the thing that I didn't understand is that the canoes are very big. And what that means, you can bring so much gear with you. And it was like a super organized trip. And so there was like, we rented like camping chairs. I can't believe I'm talking about this. Camping chairs.
You
from
only
REI
talk about camping now.
That's all I talk about. That's my thing. Camping chairs from REI that reclined. They had like pistons in them. $5 a day. Hot deal. And tables and stuff. And so when we got on the boats and we loaded up like hundreds of pounds of gear.
Yeah.
We went like 11 miles, I think, the first day.
Damn.
And then we found this beautiful little riverbed and set up like a real camp with like all these tents and chairs and a fire and tables. And then they started just making like barbacoa tacos and like all this stuff.
Whoa.
Like, this is crazy. I woke up and one of the guys made scones for every person on like a cast iron.
Like, pew, pew, pew,
yeah,
pew.
like a cast iron skillet that he brought with. I was like, what's even happening?
This is absurd. This isn't. You're painting a picture that is an exception and not the rule. Just for listeners, for viewers, yes. I can tell you that your canoe camping trip is different than the rest of ours.
Yes. Well, so I just want to, it's worth saying that it was like 72 degrees and sunny. And the dew point, we really paid close attention to that dew point that night. Dew point was about 51. I think we hit 55. No dew. No dew in the sleeping bags. No dew in the tents. It was glorious. That is what camping is like, is my understanding and my one experience.
Love it. Love it. This episode should come with a warning.
Warning. What Savage experienced was probably exaggerated, and also you should not expect similar experiences.
Exactly.
But I think, speaking of similar experiences and someone else who likes camping, our guest, Michael, really talking about what gets him excited. He moved from New York to North Carolina, all this wild stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think we should let him take the reins and jump into the interview. Michael, thank you for being on the show. It's been too long, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. I think we've known each other for over a decade
I know.
wow.
It's the big D word, as you're about to say.
The D word.
The D word decade.
Oh, man, we're revealing our age too.
Yeah. I was thinking about like when we first met, which was in, I think, like a coffee shop in New York. And I had known you online. I guess first met in person. And I walked in, I met you, I was like, dear God, this man is stylish. Like, what world am I in? Like, I was just like, I thought we were like the tech hoodie, you know, just like I'm wearing just like, you know, Wistia t-shirts all day, and like this guy is on a different plane. And so I'm happy to see that you still hold the bar.
Yeah.
For
hold
style.
the bar.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the New York vibe. I obviously just changed my hair color to whatever this color is. So always experimenting.
That's
trying
good.
new stuff.
And you're here on the show, Talking Too Loud. Obviously, the show is called Talking Too Loud because when I get excited, I cannot control the volume of my voice. I'm watching my microphone, seeing that I'm almost peaking already many times through this conversation. But we love to start the show by asking our guests, like, what's got them talking too loud? So I'd love to hear, like, what's got you talking too loud? What are you excited about these days?
Yeah. What's getting me excited right now is I moved to North Carolina about 2 years ago from New York, and we were in New York for 12 years. So came down
Big
here
move.
and
Yeah,
It's a big move.
Moved during COVID, and I started. I want to call it like I caught the Southern bug. So I started golfing. Never golfed before. I'm straight addicted. Like I probably golf.
Are you
like 2 times
serious?
a week. Yeah, dude. Like I went golfing all day yesterday. I started getting into fishing because when we first came down, we stayed at my wife's, dad's house, and he lives on the river. So now I'm into camping. Like getting into camping, like
wow.
I literally sit there and watch YouTube videos that are silent of people going on camping trips. So they'll just have like their vlog. They'll just like bust out their make their tent. They like make the food, and it's just them eating the food. I mean, these YouTube videos get like millions of views. So I think the only thing I won't do is hunting. But
you draw the line there. Yeah.
Yeah, I draw the line there, but I'm really getting into it. So, and the thing is, I never thought I would be into like outdoors. Like I have like severe allergies. I live in New York, like the thought of like going on a trail or going hiking, like wasn't real. I ran cross country in high school. And when I came down here, I was like, oh, dude, there's like trails and like woods and rivers and lakes, and you have a car now that I could drive there. And then, dude, caught the bug. Like,
wow. That is shocking. Yeah. That's exciting though.
Like, would you even like know what to do in New York? Like, is the bug that deep?
I was in New York last week, and man, I still did the New York thing. We went, I took my wife and her daughter, and we saw all of her friends. We went to like all of the new restaurants, so it was still kind of fun. But it wasn't as fun as golfing yesterday. So like, wow. I would definitely say like
that's a big shift.
That is.
Yeah. So when, but obviously like I'm getting like the Jordan 1 sneakers, so it's like fun to like, go, style it out. Yeah. So I kind of call it like north, south, high, low. It's been fun.
That's awesome. And it's interesting. So did you move down there because of family? Like what caused you to go down there?
It was straight COVID. I think we came down thinking we were going to leave New York for like a week or two because her dad was like a retired doctor. He was like, you guys should come down. Just get out of New York. We don't know. And that first week we left. So I think the first COVID case showed up in New York like early March, and we left like that week, that Friday.
Wow.
So we packed for 2 weeks thinking we were going to come back. He's like overreacting, and we just never came back. Yeah. Stayed down and moved. We moved to like Durham, which is like in the triangle right next to Raleigh here in North Carolina. So her family's from here. What's funny though is like half of my friends that lived in New York ended up moving out to where their wife's family, where they grew up. So it's like I have a friend in Austin now, Boston, like where I was out of Boston, I'm in North Carolina. So it's been interesting to see, but I actually like it a lot. So I don't think I'll ever move back to New York full time. So like I'm really digging the suburban, whatever this is called.
Yeah.
It's like it fits for this next chapter in my life.
Well, it's just interesting. I mean, I think I moved because of COVID too, and we moved back to where I grew up to be around a bunch of family and stuff. And it's been really great. And it has changed my perspective on the city, where I used to think like this place is the best coffee on earth. And it is important that I drink the best coffee on earth every day. And this is the best falafel place that has ever existed. And you go around thinking that. And then I'm like, man, I go back. I'm like, some of this stuff is very good, but it's not like this echelon above that I perceived it to be when I was like living in it.
No, I agree. I went back to New York and holy shit, coffee's like super expensive. I don't know if it's inflation, but I went and got a latte. It was like $8. You throw in tax and tip. And I was like, dude, $10 for a latte.
It's absurd.
It was
it's
good
wild.
Though.
It is good.
You know,
I know
like
what you mean.
Picture on me. It was like artisanal, and I was like, but dude, $10. This is getting high.
We have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but I'm really interested in this. Like, so you move down there, you get excited about the space, this suburban living. Like, it is so different. It's like the opposite of what you were doing before.
Yeah.
And you've started multiple and sold multiple companies. You've gone 0 to 1 on a lot of stuff. And then here you're basically like, all right, so golf, like, is it just like, do you want to try something different? Because it does seem like if you were to take you today and you pre-COVID and you hold up like, hey, this is who Michael's going to be. You're like, I don't know. Would you have believed it?
No. Like when we first moved down here, we were looking at houses and I refused to like look in neighborhoods that were on golf courses. I was like, there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
I think it first evolved as like a COVID hobby because everyone had one and I was just super bored. And one of my friends in New York also moved down here and he played a lot of golf. So, I started playing and then I just caught the bug, But I think what really changed if we go like super meta or super high level is I think once I sold the company and once I had a daughter, it really changed my perspective on what my priorities were. So I've worked in tech, especially tech startups for 15 years. Like you're grinding for 15 years. And I think near the end of that, whatever career, if that's what you call it, I was just kind of tired. I was kind of like, think about like an athlete that retires, or that's not even a good example, but over a long period of time, when you're just grinding that long, you do get tired. And then when I had our daughter, just kind of reprioritized a lot of things. And the number one thing that I realized I didn't do is I never prioritized myself. Like when I was doing the companies, it was like, oh, we got to prioritize our employees, our customers, our investors. So I was last, and I ended up getting super burned out. So more recently, as I got older, I was like, the top priority in my life is myself. If I can take care of myself, I could take care of family, I could run the company, I could do all these things. So that was like super top priority. So, and I used to feel guilty for like going to a doctor appointment versus like this work meeting. And now I'm kind of like, nah, dude, like if I want to take a little bit of time off to go do this thing, I'm going to go do that thing, because at the end of the day, like I need to take care of myself, because that's the most important priority in life. So that was like the big perspective change or shift.
That is a big shift. And I want to go, especially with that understanding of kind of where you are now and how you think about it. And I mean, I can relate to what you're talking about, because when we decided not to sell in 2017, I had told my wife up until that moment, I was like, someday we're going to sell this company. And then we're going to have all this cash, have all this time. I'm going to be able to be like super present with the kids, and like, we're going to take real vacations and all this stuff. And then when we decided not to sell, I was like, okay, if we're not selling, what does this mean? It's like, I actually have to figure out a way of balancing my life, because it's completely unsustainable. And that meant taking more vacation and working out and doing all these other things, which I know exactly the feeling you're saying is like, can I leave the middle of the day to go to a doctor's appointment? Should I do that? Or should I put more time and effort into the business? I asked myself the question, actually. I'm interested in your answer on this. How would this be different in an early stage? Do you think like if you were to go back and start Skillshare again or start Otis again with this in your mind, do you think it would like increase likelihood of success? Do you think it would decrease likelihood of success? Like, how do you think it would change how you did those businesses?
So I approach Otis very differently, where I try to balance. So my perspective now is like multiple things can be correct at the same time. Like you can work really hard and you can balance your life, right? And you can create those boundaries. So that was my mentality going into like the last company. I also like balanced that with another perspective, like with a lot of early stage startups, specifically, whether it's a tech startup or a small business, there's so much luck and timing that goes into it. So it's kind of like, man, on one hand, I could work my ass off, but I might not get lucky. I might miss timing. So, and it might just be destined to fail. Like, or I could work very little and I get really lucky and it just kind of blows up. So I had this perspective that like half the equation is out of my control. So it's like, it is what it is. And when I look back at my time at Skillshare, I realized like we made so many mistakes, and like a lot of the stuff that I thought mattered actually just didn't matter at the end of the day. It just didn't matter.
Wait, like what?
Let's see if something like a good example could come to mind. So when I look back at Skillshare, there's a lot of luck and timing. Like we got really lucky with like, obviously we all did, with video streaming becoming more ubiquitous, faster, et cetera.
Yeah.
And there were probably like 5 to 7 decisions, like on average one a year, that really just mattered, that really moved the needle. You know, one comes to mind is like when we hired our COO, who's now our CEO. That was a great decision because I was burned out. The company's moving to a different phase. I didn't align with my strengths. I handed the baton, and you know, he scaled the company from there. Or like when we pivoted to online learning and we took a bet on video streaming, and then pairing that with subscription model. Like those were the key decisions that matter. Some of the decisions that didn't matter were like this product feature. It's like you just realize throughout your career that like 8 out of 10 features people just don't use. So like sitting there debating, going circles around it, it's just like, it just didn't matter. I mean, there's like a long list. And coming to the second company, you know, I created the boundaries where I was like, hey, I'm leaving work at like 5 or 6. Like I'm going to grind this out from like 8, 9 to 5 to 6. I'm going to be very effective with what I work on. I'm going to focus on the decisions that matter. I'm going to get as much leverage as possible, and I'm out. Like I'm done.
Did you have your daughter at that point?
I did. And the tricky thing was that one of the most difficult times that I had to deal with was summer of 2019, because we just closed the seed round and we were supposed to launch that summer, and our daughter was born 3 months early. So it was not an easy time because I had to wake up, go to the hospital, go to work, leave, go back to the hospital, and just do that over and over again for like almost 100 days. Wow. So it wasn't easy. So that kind of forced me to really prioritize, because I was like, hey, my daughter's in the hospital. That's like the most important thing. And I don't have the energy to deal with like all this bullshit that just doesn't matter. Like, and I just held that mentality throughout the tenure of like just running Otis. And if you fast forward, a lot of people don't know this, but we did for a quarter experiment the 4-day work week, and it worked really, really, really well.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, but I would definitely say like we had like a team that was like a 5th, maybe even a 10th of like our biggest competitor. And I would say our output was almost similar. So there's a lot of different perspectives, but to circle back to your first question, I create boundaries and I don't feel guilty anymore. And I just realize a lot of things don't matter, and I try to focus on the things that do, and make the best decisions I can in those scenarios, and try to get as much leverage as possible. So
that's great advice, I think. And, you know, hard-won lessons in there. I think also the reason I ask about your daughter being born or not is I definitely noticed when I came back from parental leave after my first daughter was born, was this feeling of like, don't waste my time in these meetings anymore.
Yeah, dude.
Like I would get into a meeting and people would just be like shooting the shit. Like, that's fine. And then like, I would feel like we're wasting time, or we're going to go over on the meeting, and everything's going to get pushed. I'm like, I have this alternative now that I never had before, of this other human being. And this is kind of like a classic thing that happens when people are parents. I think it's like, you understand that it's different than your partner. It's different than yourself. It's like another human. I mean, there's a lot of hard-won lessons in there, and I can't even imagine how hard that was also to like have that first moment be like, your kid's in the hospital.
It was so difficult. I mean, just thinking back to it, which was like over 3 years ago, it was like a really difficult time. But yeah, I was a first-time parent, had no idea what I was doing. It was like such a weird start. But I definitely think it really created like a really strong attachment I had to our daughter, just because of the way our relationship started. And parents, your brain does get rewired. And now it's like, you have to be even more efficient with your time, because like she gets some like virus or bacteria from school. Yeah, like I'm still coughing from what she had like a couple of weeks ago. So it's like
brutal, especially when they're little and they're first exposed to everything.
But yeah, I think parenting is, for me, is like been such a blessing and so instrumental in like how I'm viewing life today as well.
One more question that is on like the market and luck, because you mentioned this in there, and I think it's something that is really easy not to see necessarily when you're in a business, right? Like you get passionate, you decide you have this like big opportunity, you want to go after it. Of course, when you're thinking that way, you feel like the market's ready for it. But then you also said like it's not all in your control, right? Like it's actually the big realization is yes, it is what I'm doing, and it's what the market wants. What advice would you give somebody who's starting if you're trying to help them figure out if it's the right time to go after an opportunity, or if you think the market's there or not?
If like someone asked me that question today, I would say, I don't know. Like that's, like for what we do in venture or tech startups, like you're basically taking a bet against the consensus and you're hoping that you're right. And if you're right, like you get really huge outcomes. But the trade-off with that is like, I think I read over the past decade, there's like 1,000 total unicorns. That was like like market drop. So I would probably say that answer is closer to like 500, or let's just say it's half or 20-30% less. That's not a lot of companies that reach unicorn status from how many are funded, how many are getting started.
No.
So I think my answer would be like, just really understand the risk and the trade-offs. Because on the other hand, you can get into something like real estate where if you work really hard, the probability of you becoming successful is much higher than trying to pull off like a tech startup. And there's so many flavors in between as well. Because I also angel invest, and there's some companies that passed on. I was like, there's no way that's going to work today. It's like, poof, it just takes off. There's other ones I'm like, oh, perfect timing's now, and it doesn't take off. So it's like, and then there's some where you just like force it to work, right? There's just so many different flavors of how things shake out. But, as an entrepreneur or founder, you have to be kind of delusional. You have to be a little crazy, and you have to kind of believe your idea is going to work. But at the same time, you also have to be realistic. You have to just know when it's just not going to work, and the opportunity cost for you to keep working on something that's just not going to work is very high, like extremely high. And yeah, there's like that one story you hear of a company that pivoted 14 times, and that 15th time it turned into Slack. It's like, yeah, of course that happens, but that's like 1 out of a million, like 1 out of 10 million, it's like so rare. I actually think that more founders should shut down their businesses or throw in the towel and just move on. Or more founders should start something that, puts a little cash in their bank account that allows them to take a huge swing later. So I don't think that this traditional venture path is the only path. I think there's so many other flavors, so many other ways entrepreneurs can like build things. So yeah, I think the whole culture around like hitting your 1 in a million, getting burned out, like for VCs where they're looking for those like grand slams, and then you have a whole generation of entrepreneurs that get burned out. They just like get jaded. It's just the way the math works out. It's like not everyone can make the NBA. It's just the way it is. So that would be my like answer to market timing. It's like, it depends on what type of business you're approaching. And if you're doing this like grand slam, it's like, dude, you really have 1 in a million shot here. So, and odds are you're not going to time it right.
And think about it like that. Yeah. Go in knowing that.
Yeah. Go in knowing what game you're playing and being okay with whatever the outcome is. Cause the outcome is probably going to be, it's not going to work.
It is interesting you say that. And I think the NBA analogy is interesting because there's, what are we talking, like 200 people in the NBA?
Yeah.
But the number of people who care about basketball, very large.
Yeah.
But I think about like the meritocracy that like exists of like the best of the best of the best. The only people get there, and everyone who's not getting there, someone's at some point is saying like, you're not going to make it. Right.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of like, if that was the only way we thought about startups, a lot of companies wouldn't start that end up being great, I think. But often I don't think people raise money, then someone tells them like, no, you're not going to be in the NBA. Like, it feels like a funny dynamic because it's most of the incentives are around trying to get everyone to believe they will get there.
Of course, I think, and it's not, in my head, it's not super binary like that. It's like, okay, if you're going to raise money from venture capitalists to build a unicorn, you should know the rules of the game that you're entering, right? Like,
yes,
if you build a business that makes $5 million a year and it stalls out, like that is a failure. in that
world. Yes.
But building a business that makes $5 million is phenomenal, right? So if you just change the game you're playing, that's great.
Yep.
Like you can raise a little bit of capital, and if you get there, and you can sell the company, you keep running it, you could do whatever you want. So I think that's kind of what I've been thinking a lot about after like having this career is what are alternative paths that entrepreneurs could take that's not this like grand slam, make the NBA professional sports. Because yeah, if you're building autonomous driving cars or spaceships or nuclear energy or whatever, yeah, like that's great for humanity and people should take huge swings. If you're building like, I'm not gonna name any examples, not that,
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, maybe you shouldn't raise $10 million to go build something. Maybe you should raise like $500K and get it to 10 million and you have a great outcome. Or
Yeah,
maybe
and
it's
everyone's
maybe
aligned.
It's bootstrapped.
Yeah.
Everyone's aligned with that outcome and you get financial freedom and independence, which I think is the most important thing you can purchase with your money if you're successful.
Let's dig into that a little bit because you sold Otis, Skillshare wildly successful. Do you feel like you have financial freedom now?
Yeah, I got really lucky. Got really lucky with Skillshare. Got really lucky with Otis. Got really lucky with angel investing. Got really lucky with the timing around when I came into crypto. So I definitely do feel like I have financial independence. I think for most people that number is much lower than you think. I don't think money buys like true happiness, but it does buy a lot of independence and freedom, which I think leads to purpose and fulfillment and all that that people talk about.
All that. So and what does that mean for you now? I mean, I know you're taking a break and you're trying to figure out what do you want to do next? Like, and I know you're on the golf course, and I know you're doing some camping, but like, does that when you're doing those things is with which is like obviously becoming your passion right now? Are you thinking like, oh, I can make a business? Like walk us through what your process is right now. And I'll say before you answer, I have a few friends who've sold their business the last few years. And it's interesting to see how divergent this process is for folks at this moment.
It's all over the place. I've talked to a lot of founders too. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's kind of like a lot of questions like, what's the purpose of life? What am I supposed to do here? You ask yourself those questions. But for me personally, I would say my personality is like, yeah, I walk around and I come up with ideas. I'm like looking at it, oh, there's a way more efficient way to do this. Like I went out for a run this morning. I was like, why hasn't anyone built a social network that, like a new one? I was like, oh, maybe we would look, so I'm always thinking of ideas. But my personality is like, I don't know why I do this, but I'm like always on the far ends of the spectrum. So like I went like super hard, tech startup, sold this company. And then recently I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play golf, like go down the hobby route, like got into Legos. And then where I landed is somewhere in the middle, which is I think where most life happens is like in the middle of these far extremes. And I realized it's like for my personality, which I think is true for most people, like you have to have some purpose and you have to kind of work on something. I think for me, I don't know what that is, but that's kind of like been the journey since then. And, I went from like, I don't know if this is kind of embarrassing, but I'll just kind of tell you guys. I went from like, like buying a bunch of stuff, selling all those things. I was like, dude, that didn't do anything. If anything, it's like causing more stress. It's like, I don't want anyone dinging that car, or I don't want this expensive ass painting in my house. Mm-hmm. So then you start selling all those things. And then I went from like, like coming with a bunch of tech ideas to coming up with no ideas. And then, trying to, figure out like what I want to do and realizing how much your ego is involved into that. And then going the far other end of the spectrum and then landing somewhere in the middle. So like this journey that I've been on has been like all over the place and I'm still kind of exploring it. But I think where I'm landing is working on things that you want to work on with people that you want to work with and on something that gets you kind of excited. Where if you make money, that's great. And for my personality, it's like, that's like just a great scorecard, but not to like make money to go buy more things. And the funny thing is, if I circle all the way back, there's a certain amount of money that I think most people have to have financial independence. Obviously, the lower your expenses are, like the lower that number is. And every other dollar after that just doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. I think I wrote a tweet storm a couple weeks ago of someone that was worth like $100 million. There's a lot of lessons there and went viral, but the thing that stood out for me is that he literally could not spend that money. He like physically could not spend any, like $1, I think it was over like 10 or 20 million. And for the average person, that's like a lot of money, but like whatever that number is for you personally, like everyone's number is going to be different, but he like couldn't spend it. And then he kind of went full circle back to like what's important, like having a sense of purpose, having great relationships, you know, having great health, you know, and whatever that is for everyone's going to be different. And the things that matter to him were things that were just like free in life. This doesn't cost anything. So that was kind of like my full circle. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might start a company. I might start a YouTube channel. I might become a, you know, like family, husband and parent, dad. No clue, but I'm kind of just taking it step by step.
Wow. That's, first of all, thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's not an experience that most people, it's an experience that people dream of experiencing, but don't know what it's really like. And it's interesting too, that you said that you bought all this stuff in there and then looking for happiness and realizing like, actually, this is stressful to have these things. I don't want them.
I don't want them. And then I went to buy experiences. You know, it's kind of like you do that, you travel, and then you're like, okay, I can't travel like all the time. I can't play golf all day. I can't just sit around and read books. So then you start looking for things to do that bring fulfillment.
And you talked about having like a team of people you want to work with, working on a common purpose. You know, having had multiple companies, investing in lots of things, seeing how these things have functioned, having a chance by yourself to like reflect on all of this. When you think now about like, what does an amazing team look like? Well, like, what's a team that you want to spend time with look like? What is that?
Yeah. Right now it's no one. Like I'm on that far into the extreme where I don't want to manage anyone. I don't want to work with anyone right now. But I think to answer your other question in there, if I do want to work on something, I'm okay with it breaking even. I'm okay with working with people that I want to work with that might not be like the best for the role, but they have high potential, and I could just mentor them. So the thought I had this morning, which is, I think that like I'm really craving right now is like creativity, because I just went through a whole career. I'm not saying like being a founder is not creative, but it's super operational, you know, like it's super analytical. It's like extremely like detail oriented. And I was like, man, I just want to do something creative right now. So the thought of like working with like an editor for like a YouTube channel to me is like very appealing, you know, to be able to collaborate on ideas and come up with them and put them out. So I'm kind of in that world. I think I probably would start another company, and the people I wouldn't work with, I think, you know, would want to have to work in a very certain way. And I would probably create that culture from day one. But I'm just not like mentally there yet. I think it's like, you know, the saying, I think it was like, you know, every like junior person wants to become the manager, and the manager wants to be the director, VP, and the VP wants to be CEO, and the CEO just wants to open up a coffee shop in the middle of like some like I'm in that state right now where I'm like, maybe I just should open a coffee shop and just like operationalize this. It would be like the most well-run coffee shop in like this area. But
well, it seems like you would need to be creative too. I mean, it seems like you're gonna need some sweet latte art. You're gonna need something, something that's very different to scratch that itch. But I mean, can you, you know, you said that comment, which is so classic, right? Of like the wanting to climb the ladder, and then, you know, when you get there, obviously it can be quite lonely at the top, and it's not exactly what everyone thinks it would be. Do you want to just like, I feel like you're in a unique spot to talk about that because you've been in that role multiple times and now you're not, and you don't need to be. Like, how do you think people should think about their career like that? Like, if you're not the founder, but you're joining a company or you're joining a project, like what should you think about? Should it be about title? Should it be, what advice would you give to someone today on that?
I think the founder is one of the worst roles that anyone can actually do. It is so lonely. It's so stressful. The odds are against you. On the flip side, it's so fulfilling. It's so much fun. Like you could change a lot of lives, and you could derive a lot of fulfillment from it. Obviously, if you're successful, it changes your net worth dynamic too. I think the advice I would give is probably slightly different. It would be really centered around like, which path do you want to take? Like, that is a very traditional path. I think today it's a very traditional career. Or do you want to take a non-traditional path and blaze your own trail and create your own rules? Like, I'm kind of like observing like a lot of these YouTubers and creators. I'm like, man, what they're building is kind of amazing. You know, like they get to be their own boss. They get to create content. They get, you know, to make money doing it. They get to work with the team. And it's a very non-traditional path. Maybe in 10 years it'll become more traditional. And there's so many other examples like that where I would probably nudge people to take the more non-traditional path if they wanted to do that. But yeah, if you want to take a traditional path, that's just what it is. It's like you work here, you get promoted, you take on more responsibility, and you get there, and you get more stressed out, and you have way more, you know, get more anxiety as you climb the ladder. But it just depends on what the person wants to do. So yeah, all of my advice to people when they ask me, it's like, it really comes down to what you want to do. There's no wrong answer. You like, here, you know, here's a spectrum, and you just kind of figure out where you want to land on that spectrum. Do you like it really, you know, it's like, you know, when you go to a restaurant, they're like, do you want it really spicy, or do you want it like mild, or do you want something in the middle? It's like, no wrong answer. You just kind of have to figure out where you are on that spectrum.
It's like that choose your own adventure, but know what the adventure is, right? It's like choose your own. I feel like everyone is like, choose your own adventure. And it seems like there's a second part of that sentence.
Yeah.
That's missing.
Choose your own adventure, but really know the rules of the game that you're playing, you know, like, and what game you're playing. I think a lot of people don't even know what game they're playing.
Yeah.
When they choose that adventure, it's like, you got to know the rules of the game and then if you're okay with that, cool. But it's like, yeah, you can't just like show up to a game and not know the, you know, like
not know the rules.
Know what game you're playing. Yeah. You can't go to basketball court and just start playing tennis.
Exactly. I feel like that's like a big theme of this interview is basically like know the rules of the game that you're getting into and what you're signing up for and what that actually means. Yeah. And like, it's the people who come into exactly as you're saying, they're trying to play tennis on the basketball court and it just doesn't work. And they're confused. Like to your point earlier, it's like, you hit 5 million in revenue. Like if you have a 5-person business, that's the greatest business ever.
That's phenomenal.
It's insane. Dude, and that actually happens. And people
all the time.
Yeah. It's shockingly common. I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day who has a $10 million business. He's so stressed and trying to work through all these like super hard problems. And like, you know, he's like, why is it not way bigger? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but actually in that case, like they have, you know, complete freedom to kind of build the business however they want. And the rules are even set up properly for the game that they're playing. But still, it's like, it's so hard to get perspective, I think, on your own career and life and like how it all fits into the big picture.
I would take that over like almost every other scenario. If I was like a young entrepreneur, like that is not a failure in my mind. I think having the freedom to choose the path that you want to take in that scenario, like I would argue that like 99.99999% of founders and entrepreneurs don't have that. Like they don't. If you have like investors, if you have like all these others, like expectations that are put on the company, like the company that has the 5 to 10 million revenue where they can do that, that is a phenomenal place to be in. And I think we have to like shepherd that as like a success versus a failure.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I feel like it's been seen as a failure in tech, but it's starting to shift around. I think as the costs of starting a company have like come down. Yeah. But it's like I have a bunch of friends that run, I'll call them quote traditional businesses, you know, like plumbing and like heating, and they're all making like unbelievable. Their businesses are in this range, right? And they're all profitable and they're consistent. And it's like the trend isn't. Are people still going to need to heat their houses in 10 years or 20 years? Yes. Like, are they still going to want water? Yes. And I think there's like it's kind of interesting to think about like looking for that flash in the pan versus like looking for the thing that is actually fulfilling. Gives you what you need to even have the shot at going after the bigger thing and not have to have it work, you know, all that kind of stuff. Michael, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, this is great.
This is a great conversation. I appreciate you being so transparent and open. Not everyone does that, and you really do it in such a thoughtful way. And it's been too long, man. Like I feel like I don't play golf, but I feel like we've got to get some golf on the schedule. I'll come embarrass myself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. This is a great conversation. It was great to catch up as well.
And for people who don't follow you yet, like where can folks find you online? Where can they connect with you?
Probably mostly on Twitter. Just Mike Karnj, MikeKarnj on Twitter.
All right, man. Well, look, good luck out there on the course. I mean, and enjoy North Carolina, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was I think the thing that's really fun about that conversation for me, there's many things that are fun about it, but I mean, I haven't talked to him in a long time.
Yeah.
And to see him like.
You were just like two dads.
Just
catching
two dads.
up.
Just
a couple of dads.
Yes. Why did I swear then? I don't know, but.
I don't know.
Just getting dad stuff. No, but I think it was interesting to see someone who has gone on this journey and scaled some companies and got really tired and like made some decisions and different decisions than I've made. And some things are really the same and some things are completely different. And I don't know, I just found that really interesting. And I just appreciate too, he's so willing to talk about this stuff and be really thoughtful about it. And I think a lot of people, who not everyone is willing to kind of share those struggles.
Totally.
And even what he said is like, I'd prefer to run the business that's making 5 or 10 million. Most people wouldn't even say that.
Yeah.
Because that can be perceived as a failure in this world.
That's so why, I mean, coming from a very different perspective than either one of you, that is a wild thing that could be perceived as a failure. So, yes. Yeah, I mean, there were so many things like, how much of success is about luck. Like that was also super frank, super candid.
Yes.
And yeah, that just, thinking about other episodes that we've done in the past where we've had entrepreneurs on the show talk about like, playing the long game, like building the life you want to live. And how he got there maybe in a way where it was almost like he was learning things as he was building Skillshare, as he was building Otis, and that was informing his next decision. And so like I really appreciated him breaking down that process for us as well.
Yeah, that was very cool. And it was also interesting when we talked about the stress of being a founder. And I was sitting here just thinking like, I did have that problem for periods of time of not being able to scratch the creative itch. And then there were ways that I found for me that like did fulfill that. Mm-hmm. And that how important that is for me is actually similar, but I've been able to find like this show is part of that for me. Right. And it's just interesting because it's like, it's those basic elements that we need as a human to feel like the work we're doing is important and it's worthy of our time and that we also have like this balance and like, I don't know, it's just, it's interesting stuff. I hope if you watched today, if you listened, like you can ask yourself those questions too,
100%.
Am I getting what I need? Maybe I should be happier with where I'm at. Maybe I should be less happy. I don't know where you're going to end up, but I think asking those questions is like such a healthy thing.
I totally agree. And I think we're both like almost tongue-tied or more tongue-tied than usual just because so much of the interview was so existential. Like, yes. It's about, being a founder, being an entrepreneur, finding creative fulfillment, being a parent. But like a lot of it is exactly what we were talking about, those bigger, broader questions that like we do contend with, but maybe not on a very conscious level.
It's very easy not to contend with them. It's very easy to just be busy and keep going. And then when you do contend with them, but even just the juxtaposition of like COVID, moved to a different place, completely different hobbies, into things I never thought I would be into, thinking differently about the previous time. Like all of that is just like, it's heady. And
it's heady.
I think but it's healthy too. It's a healthy questions to ask because I think it increases the likelihood that you end up on a path you're actually excited about. Thank you to the Talking Too Loud heads who are out there. I did get some emails, by the way, like what we should call. I don't think we don't need to get into this now.
That's next time.
But if you like the show, please rate and review it wherever you listen to it. It is very helpful for us. It spreads the word. It helps more people find the show. If you have feedback, you can email us at ttlpod@wistia.com. You can find me on Twitter at csavage and on LinkedIn, I think at CJ Savage, and on TikTok at something else, and a few other places too. And you can find Sylvie at Gimme the Loot.
That's right.
And that is it for today. Take care, everyone. Stay heady and stay healthy.
Nailed it.